Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. I'm your host Jay, and this is The Objective. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the 49th episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. Before we get into the quote of the day and the program that I have in store for you, I just want to direct your attention to www.politicalstorm.com. I am very fortunate to be a contributor to Political Storm. It's a website that I wouldn't say is centrist, but they allow and they afford individuals on the right and left an equal platform, a place where everyone is welcome and where we champion intellectual honesty, discussion, healthy discussion and debate. So definitely give us a visit on Political Storm. The quote for today is from Sophocles, one that I really like. It says, "I would prefer even to fail with honor than win by cheating." One more time. "I would prefer even to fail with honor than win by cheating." I love that. I really do like it because we live in such a world where it's like a rat race, and the ultimate goal is to win. The ultimate goal is to be at the very top. The ultimate goal is to have the most success, to win. And what this quote reminds me is that that's truly not the ultimate goal. Honor is one of those things that's priceless. You can't put a price tag on honor. You know, it's like integrity. You can't put a price tag on integrity. In some cases, you can put a price tag on success or on winning, but those abstract ideas like integrity, honor, happiness, you can't put a price tag on them. Those are the highest goals, truly. And it takes maturity, it takes experience to come to that conclusion. So with that, as we go through the weekend and the week that follows, let's remember that everything that we do, whether it be at work, in our relationship, whether it be a marriage relationship with friends, colleagues, whatever the case may be, remember that honor is the highest goal, not winning. Because winning, if your goal in a marriage, and I'm not married, but if your goal in a marriage, so I've heard, is to win, that marriage will be short-lived. I could almost guarantee it just based on, what I've seen, not what I've been a part of. I've never been married. All right. Hopefully soon, one day. But we need to, really aim for those goals that are priceless, that have no monetary value on them. To start off our show today, and I know this is a little strange because the last two episodes, I actually started off with officer-involved shootings. Not the greatest topics, but I think there is much value to discussing and giving perspective to some of these shootings because they do happen on a regular basis, unfortunately, whether it be police officers getting shot or, citizens getting shot and killed. So it's something that if, we do continue at this rate and we do have these high profile shootings, that I might even start a new, not a new channel, but a new series kind of dissecting, giving perspective and my opinion on these shootings, kind of breaking them down. So if there is interest for that, let me know and I will think about starting that up. This shooting comes out of Danville, California, I believe it is. The Danville police were involved in the shooting of 25-year-old Juan Marquis Jones. He was an unarmed black male that was killed by police. This shooting naturally would have caused an uproar and protest within the city of Danville. And to my understanding, the Danville police did something unprecedented. They released the footage, the body camera footage of this shooting. I think it was within several hours of the actual event. Whether that was to quell these protests or to calm the city before like property damage occurred, and what usually happens when riots happen, the video was released. And I'm going to start off by saying this, folks. I think it's so important. I'm such a proponent and advocate for body cameras. right? I know that a lot of officers, when the idea of body cameras and recorders, mics or whatever came out, and you have to wear them on shift, I know a lot that would, kind of be like, do I need to wear this? Like, I can't even be myself. It's just like Big Brother's watching at 12 hours a day on shift. But I think a lot of officers realize now that having body cameras not only promotes the professionalism of the officer and accountability to the officer wearing the device, but it also helps with their safety. Obviously, police are going to be put into situations where no matter if you're wearing a camera or not, there's a person who's either high, deranged, mentally ill, who really doesn't care and they just want to cause harm. So for the most part, though, when people know they're being recorded, that typically, for a reasonable person, dictates their behavior. So the way this call started out, it was a domestic call. A female called the police saying that she was assaulted by a male and that she was being followed walking home. Police attend the scene. They find Juan Marquis Jones in his vehicle. They command him to get out of the vehicle. He does not comply. Instead, he backs his vehicle into a wooded area. It's like a dead end. And he gets out of his vehicle finally when his vehicle, according to the video, looks like it's out of commission. He gets out of the vehicle and one of his hands are visible to police. And you can see this through the body camera. The other hand is not visible. And because of this, you have an unknown threat. Okay, you have someone who's not complying. You're asking to show their hands for your safety as a police officer and for their safety. And this individual is not complying. He turns his back to the officers. He's just non-compliant. It's like he's not hearing what they're saying. And they're yelling. They're telling him to, show your hands, put your hands up, get out of the wooded area. And he's not complying. So the first option we see here, like I've discussed with the Alton Sterling shooting, verbal commands. Verbal commands don't work. Move to less lethal. The taser is deployed, but since he's in a wooded area and there's a lot of trees and shrubbery, you have to understand that what a taser is, it's like two-pronged projectiles, and they're attached to this wire, and that's where the electrical charge transmits. This isn't like a bullet where it can pierce through shrubbery and a wooded area. So if there is disturbance and if there are obstacles in the way, it will not connect with the intended target. So the taser is deployed and it's unsuccessful. Okay, and you'll see that in the video, and I strongly recommend you check the video out. Before you know it, they continue giving verbal commands, but before you know it, Juan Marquis, he turns around swiftly. And when I say swiftly, I mean he whirls around, now revealing the hand that he was hiding, and he outstretches both arms like this. Okay, mind you, guns are trained on him already. Okay, so police have their guns either in the ready position or I don't know if they have them trained on him, to be honest with you, but just based on the timeline from when he whirled around to the firearms being discharged, the guns were already out. This movement caused the police officers to immediately fire their weapons. And you have to think, in the court of law, when the shooting is being investigated, would a reasonable person fear for their safety? And the answer would typically be yes. In a situation like this, you don't know if the person's armed, they're not complying, and they're going to turn around with both arms outstretched in a shooting position. Tragic, folks. But again, body cameras, they are good. They are, they tell a story. They tell the story. And you see from a police officer's point of view. And obviously there are, limitations for a camera, but they are the best thing that we can get to find out what happened in these situations. So, I think it's very important to gain perspective, and I think it's important to utilize these cameras as best as possible for the safety of the public and the safety of the officers. I will be back with you for the second segment after this break.
Once upon a time that to be a Republican in this area of the country felt a little bit like being Gary Cooper in High Noon, outnumbered in a big way. But I remember the story of a fellow who was running for office as a Republican, and he was in a rural area and it wasn't known to be Republican, and he stopped by a farm to do some campaigning. And when the farmer heard he was a Republican, his jaw dropped and he said, "Wait right here till I go get Ma. She's never seen a Republican before." So he got her, and the candidate looked around for a podium from which to give his speech, and the only thing he could find was a pile of that stuff that Bess Truman took 35 years trying to get Harry to call fertilizer. So he got up on the mound, and when they came back, he gave his speech. And at the end of it, the farmer said, "That's the first time I ever heard a Republican speech." And the candidate said, "That's the first time I've ever given a Republican speech from a Democratic platform."
Hello everyone, welcome back to the second segment of the 49th episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. I'm your host Jay, and we're going to get right into it with this piece of news information. Representative Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. You may remember that name if you've been keeping on top of the Russian investigation, Russia collusion, I should say, investigation. He threatened the impeachment of the FBI director, Christopher Wray, and of Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general. Now, you may ask, how on earth do you come to this conclusion? The House Intel Committee actually subpoenaed the Justice Department for documents regarding, the conclusions made in the Hillary investigation, and more specifically, to this instance, the documents that articulate and justify the initiation of this Russia collusion investigation. So these documents, they weren't being put forth. They weren't being, the subpoena was not being complied with. And the Intel Committee just weren't having it. And they said, you know what, we are more than justified in, holding you in contempt. And that will be followed by impeachment. Now, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, and Rod Rosenstein obviously took that seriously and understand that to be a plausible course of action. And they actually finally decided a day after to provide the documents. I thought that was very interesting. And, there's been a pattern of stonewalling when it comes to, documentation for the Hillary investigation, documentation on the birth and the origin of this Russia collusion investigation. There's been a lot of stonewalling, and it does, cause concern for people who want to know the truth. They want to know what's happening. And the House Intel Committee, they have that jurisdiction. They have the right to know. So I think by Representative Devin Nunes threatening with contempt and impeachment, he has a direct counter to this stonewalling, because he is justified and he is lawfully placed to hold them into contempt and to recommend impeachment. So I think that's interesting, and I'd like to see how this goes from now on, because now Representative Devin Nunes, he has this in his back pocket where he can threaten with impeachment if the Justice Department and FBI do not comply. So very interesting stuff there, folks. The last story I want to get into with you, fine folks, is a big one, and it is to do with the Russia collusion. Well, is it really? It's to do with the Russian collusion investigation. Michael Cohen, President Trump's lawyer, his personal lawyer, his home and office were raided by the FBI. Documents, emails, plenty of information was taken. This was, if I've ever seen one, this was a direct attack. This was the declaration of war in attacking the president's lawyer. And it appears now that he is under criminal investigation. Now, let's not get it twisted, folks. If Michael Cohen is involved in criminal activity, who knows the extent of what he's involved in. If he is involved in criminal activity, he should be held accountable for his actions. But let me get it straight on this front as well. The Russia collusion, well, let's say this, the special counsel was selected to search for Russian collusion. And I just want you to understand, and it's easy for those of you who may not like the president, who don't enjoy the president, who don't appreciate him, who wants him out of office ASAP. A lot of you may say, well, although, this may be a little government overstep, or, there may be severe bias in the investigation, I want him out. I want the president out a lot more than I care about any of this bias or government overstep. And that's very dangerous, folks. And just looking at the timeline and the content and the goals of the special counsel, it raises questions, because if you are okay with this happening to an American citizen, just know that right now what's happening is case law is being made. And we have to remember that if we were in the position of the president, if we were accused of a crime, and then an investigation into us took a turn, a left turn, a right turn, a U-turn, a beeline, and now they're looking at something completely different. Obviously, folks, this is a witch hunt. There's no real way around it. The practices being used by the special counsel, the targeting, there's no way around. It's a witch hunt. And all that I can say is that regardless as to what happens at the conclusion of this investigation, everything is going to have to be documented. Everything will be available. If charges are laid, if there are no charges, it's almost as if the Democrats and the special special counsel are going on like a kamikaze suicide mission. And they're just trying to turn over every rock, desperately looking for ways to trap the president, desperately looking for criminality, desperately looking for anything to undermine his presidency. And thus far, everything that has been thrown at him has not worked. It's incredible. It's truly incredible to see this desperation. And obviously, we're going to wait and we're going to see what happens. But, I would like to really compile the information on the beginning of this special counsel, like a timeline to where we are now. And I'm sure that if anybody, any reasonable person would step back and look at that, they would be blown away. And I think it's hard not to come to the conclusion that this is a witch hunt. With that, folks, I want to, before I go, I want to read a comment from one of my wonderful followers. Just give me a second here. This, what I posted here was an interview. It was on Instagram. Follow me at The Objective Podcast. It was an interview, Anderson Cooper and Karen McDougal, another adult star who is alleging an affair with the president. And so I'll just read it here. Anderson Cooper of CNN had an exclusive interview with former adult star Karen McDougal on her alleged affair with the president. The questions included: did President Trump use a condom? Did he ever compare you to Ivanka? This is the current state of the Fourth Estate. This is how low they have gone. Instead of dedicating time to relevant issues affecting millions, they obsess over National Enquirer-esque headlines. At one point, Karen stated that the reason she decided to go public was because she was told her story would be worth millions. This is political smear, not truth-seeking. This is character assassination, not news. What do you think? And Joselle Tully has been a long-term follower of mine, and she's she's very interactive, and she does post her opinions, and I really do appreciate that. So I wanted to share this with you. Maybe there are hundreds of thousands of people who associate with Joselle Tully here. Maybe she's the only one, but I just want you to hear her out. As a married woman, it's disappointing to me if someone doesn't abide by their vows. That said, I have zero time or desire to listen to tabloid fodder from women who are sucked in by greed and get rich quick interviews a decade later when he wasn't the president. So what difference does it make now? They're really grasping at straws with this march and daily trash instead of helping our country to do better. This was a comment from 3 weeks ago when I posted this picture and caption. So I want to thank you, Joselle, for your consistent support and dialogue on my page. To all of you, thank you for sticking around with me. The episode is a bit longer today, but the ultimate goal, and I want you to remember, is to make it your goal to be objective. Have a good night.